I wanted to talk more about the Carol Burnett Show here, too.
Yeah.
The Carol Burnett Show was just so important. First of all, for what Carol did for female comedians, but for as funny as the show was, too.
Right.
Was there... How much did you include into the Carol Burnett Show sketch-wise? Like, were you coming up with ideas and stuff, or were you basically just doing what they wanted you to do?
A lot of times I would write a sketch, and, they were always willing to try it.
Yeah.
So, but no, they had some pretty sensational writers on that. They understood what the people who were going to do the Burnett Show were all about, and including Carol.
Yeah.
That you give them an outline and they will fill it in,
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily that you sit in here until somebody comes up with a funny line. There were funny situations and things that they created that led you... well, I used to keep a lot of stuff away from Harvey until we actually did it. And we were doing a thing one time where I was a dentist, and I was going to stick myself with the Novocaine needle and eventually immobilize myself. My first, my arm, my leg, my head, And
while you're working on a patient?
While I'm working on the patient. So I never told Harvey about the Novocaine part of it. So he said, this sketch stinks.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like you're filling my tooth, I said, well, I got a couple of things, but he says, well, it's never going to work. Well, when he was sitting there watching me do all of this stuff, he actually wet his pants. So I think that was living proof.
Oh, it's great.
So when you were coming up with sketches, you started with an idea. You started with, or there'd be a tagline that you're trying to, how do we get to this line in this situation?
It mostly started with a situation, and what can you build around it that would be funny, and but as far as writing a joke for a joke, the Bob Hope theory of writing a joke was not in my makeup.
Yeah.
It was more of a funny situation or something that...
you were always great with situations, and you're always great with... Another thing you're always great with is physical comedy, and I think that kind of lends to the situational comedy, too.
Right.
You would do a lot on the Carol Burnett Show, like... Tim would get so many laughs without doing anything, like without saying a word. You wouldn't say anything, but it was in the expressions and in the movements. So was physical comedy a gift you always had, or was that something you learned as you went along?
I'm dyslexic, so I read things into sentences that are never there. And every time I got up in class to read... it would always be hysterical because I was reading things into sentences that were never even thought of in those sentences, and I enjoyed the kids laughing at me. I didn't object to it, and I used, since I was a small kid, I weighed 97 pounds when I played football in high school, and the coach made me a guard, which was a pretty bright move. Yeah, so there was a lot of people I would look at.
How tall were you at 197?
About 5'2".
Woo! It's that Ohio food.
Yeah. I would look at the guys that I was playing against that night and say to myself, oh, this is going to be a painful evening. But I was like a rat. They couldn't find me because I would go through their legs or around and rather quickly. And so I was in the backfield before they knew where I was. And I guess I used that as part of the strength of whatever I was doing,
I'm getting people writing in. They want you to recount the elephant story.
Oh. Well, the director, Joe Hamilton, who was Carol Burnett's first husband, second husband, came out of the booth and he said, we're a little long on this show. So we were playing a game where it was a one-word answer that Carol was playing. And so he said, when Carol gives you the clue, just say elephant and shut up and sit down. So she gave me the question, and I said, elephants remind me of that elephants. And I went into the story about these Siamese elephants that were joined at the trunk. And so they couldn't go like the other elephants. They could just go nork. And I went into a whole thing about the trainer had a monkey that would come out and dance on their trunks because they were connected at the trunks. And it just went on and on and on and on. And I could look back
Show's
into
going
the
a little
booth.
long,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I would look back into the booth and see these guys going, oh, for God's sake, what is he doing? So, actually, Vicki had the funniest, I can't say it on the air, but the funniest
Vicki
line.
Lewis?
Vicki Lawrence.
Oh, Vicki Lawrence. Yeah, Vicki Lewis is news radio. Is
I
that
get-
right?
Yeah. I got through with the whole thing, and Carol said, go on, Mama. And she said, you sure that little A-hole's through? And so that ended that.
Well, when you did stuff like that on the Carol Burnett Show, though, was there really anyone that upset about it after it's so funny and it airs? And
No.
Afterwards,
no.
everyone's
they
just
played
part
it
of it.
exactly for what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the sense you get watching it, is that
Yeah.
they were very tolerant and accepting of happy accidents, as long
Yeah. Oh,
as they
yeah.
were funny and they
Oh,
were
yeah.
within the
Yeah.
guidelines of TV.